Hey y'all, Data Guy here. Happy 2023, the year of data, as it always is in my world. And today I have a video for you on the latest update to Apache Airflow, Airflow 2.8. And this, while there's not a lot of really kind of big headline grabbing features here, I think you're going to be excited about a lot of the just kind of quality of life and DAG authoring and just new capabilities that were introduced kind of under the hood that is going to make a lot of just kind of common annoying things a lot easier for you. And also open up the Airflow UI to beautiful things like our first update, which is now the ability to change the color of the top line Airflow bar so you're not stuck with that purple color. And while it might seem minor, that was actually a big request. So super excited to see that finally make it into the product. Now, the second feature, and what I think is honestly probably the biggest, is the new introduction of an object storage. So before, you have things like data sets that allow you to, have kind of a common way to define a data set output, use it to trigger downstream DAGs, but there wasn't something for objects. So you were restricted to just kind of using data sets. Now, what we have is object storage. So you can see you can import this with this new object storage path. And essentially what this allows you to do is define a path to an external object storage, like an S3 bucket, like an Azure Container Service, any kind of cloud storage bucket, you can now assign to an object storage ID. So this gives you a common way of referencing the output of where an object is being stored, and also makes transfer operations a lot easier because now instead of needing to use an S3 to Azure Container Storage transfer operator, now you can just use a generic file transfer operator for any object storage path. And so here you can see kind of different ways. Hey, if I want to read this, I can just read directly from that file using file.read. You can see I can print different properties of a file that are all stored within kind of this file object. And again, we're just defining that up here. And then you have different operations for things like, hey, I want to create a new file that's in that same base path, and deleting right to new files. And if I go into, hey, if I want to use this in kind of a real world scenario, we can look at the code here and you'll see, hey, now I can reference this object storage path using this generic kind of base destination, list any files within there, read file content, copy it to local, and then if I go to another one that will do a transfer, here we have that generic file transfer operator I mentioned, where I can have two different S3 buckets, and I can use this generic file transfer operator, reference the path. So this is just the path source, what I've defined within S3, and this will be object storage path, and then use that to transfer a file between two different buckets. So just making there's kind of part of a trend in Airflow recently, which has been, hey, instead of needing to have all these specific point-to-point connections, why not have generic transfer operators, generic operators that can be used for any two systems? So it doesn't have to be necessarily a S3 to GCS, as I've already said. So super excited about this one. It is still pretty early days, but just kind of opens up a whole new paradigm in how objects are dealt with within Airflow. And I really think this is kind of cool for what can be built on top of it in the future. And another kind of cool quality of life feature was that now the XCOM tab has been finally relegated to its own section. So if I run this DAG, and you can see also there was an update to the trigger DAG screen. So before you always had to fill out this logicful date and run ID, which just didn't really make any sense because why would I need to assign a run ID just to, manually trigger a DAG? I don't want to have to manually, just kind of separately keep track of how many times I've run it, right? And so here, no longer do you need to fill those out. Now you just put in what fruit you want. I'm going to say I want information about a pineapple and then trigger this DAG. And then what you'll see is now we have this new tab right here where no longer do I have to go to the details screen to then get XCOMs. It now is a top level tab, so I can immediately just tab into there, see all the different XCOMs for a particular cell. And if you're working a lot with XCOMs, if you're using them to troubleshoot, how data is flowing between your tasks, you'll know how annoying it was to just constantly have to click out and into the details for each individual task. So now you can just quickly iterate through your tasks, look at the XCOMs here within this kind of top level screen. And again, this is part of a paradigm shift where now instead of having you go through different tabs, you really just have this one UI where you have all of your information easily available and you're not constantly loading between different screens. These are just different tabs within kind of the same general UI. So really nice feature there, just less clicking, less moving around within Airflow, and always a huge fan of that. So next, what we also have is an extension of the task decorators to now include task decorators for external Python, virtual environments, and just standard Python task branches. So here, if I want to pick a number, pick 4054, trigger the DAG, and then let's go through it. You can just see here now when I am defining my branching, and so this is really going to show up within the DAG code here, but instead of you needing to use the traditional operator declaration for your branching logic, now you can just add that add task equals branch, and then write your branching function just like you were before, but just without needing to use kind of that standard operator template. Now it's just, hey, use the best practice of these kind of new task decorators, and it also just makes it easier to convert existing branch functions into obviously these tasks. So again, nice little quality of life improvement, and really just hope to continue to see more and more of these task decorators added, because I do just much prefer the task API way of defining things. I think it's a lot more natural. And you can see here, you can still add your different requirements, your cache path for your virtual environment, and configure it just as you were before. So there's no loss of functionality, only pure gains in just kind of how you want to define it. And if you want to use the old way of defining your branch, totally up to you. You're not cribbed into only being restricted to using the new decorators. Now, for our last kind of really big feature, and this I would say is probably the one I'm most excited about, because I think it's just super, super cool and will eliminate a lot of headache of having to implement things in many different DAGs. And that is the new listener hooks for data sets. And so within this directory, so your new listener hooks, these are basically features that are going to allow you to write a function that subscribes to data set creation and update events using listener hooks that are always on, always active for all DAGs without needing to actually add them to each individual sub-DAG. And this is really useful if you need to trigger external processes based on a data set being created, updated, but you want it to happen whenever a data set is updated, not necessarily just within the context of one certain DAG. And so if we go actually into our include directory and this listener.py function, you can see an example listener hook. And so what's happening here is you're importing this new hook implied from Airflow listeners. Then we're also just using the Slack webhook hook and send Slack notifications. And so here what we're doing is you can see we're creating a new hook that is saying whenever a data set is changed, data sets are just any data set, execute whenever a data set changes registered. And so what this will do is anytime a data set changes, it'll put this in their logs. So that it'll print out, I'm always listening to any data set changes, and I heard that. Print posting to Slack, and then you can have some downstream action. So in this case, I am then sending out a alert to a Slack workspace to alert that, hey, a data set was changed. And so this is kind of an upgrade over the old notifications and the alerting functions. So kind of really building on the backs of the alerting function that was released in 2.6, where now you have easier, more kind of generalized ways to alert without needing to stick to that old paradigm with Airflow, which was, hey, I need to manually configure my notifications for each individual DAG. Now there's been a lot of focus on, hey, how do we have these systems that are able to act across all of your DAGs, listen for common state changes, and imprint some logic based on that. So you just have to set it once and then have it distributed across your entire workspace. And so what this looks like in practice, if we switch back over into the web UI, is we can go into this producer DAG. So here, what this will do is just change a data set. So this code is just hitting a bear webhook and then getting an image of a bear. And if we look in the code, so here, select our, or not in the code, look in the logs. So if we look in the task logs for this particular task, you can actually see that there was this info that's posted, hey, I'm listening for any data set changes, and I heard that our listener fired just because that data set was changed. But if we actually go into the individual code here, you'll see there's none of that information implied here. And we didn't actually even need to import anything. So this will happen whenever any data set change occurs across your environment. You don't even need to import the packages into individual DAGs. There's no relation to DAGs. It is just strictly looking for any data set changes across the entire environment. And now, I actually lied earlier. My bad. So here we also have, this is kind of a tough one to show you because now when, let's say, a task fails, it will actually show you if it wasn't because of the actual task instance, so if I go actually back into here, go into our logs. So now there are alerting, so if I go here, you can now have uh, alerts in your logs that are coming from, let's say, if the underlying scheduler goes down, you'll actually now get an alert within your uh, task logs that says, hey, you actually had your scheduler go down, and that's what caused it. Unfortunately, when I cause the scheduler to go down, it also stops working the entire DAG. But the you can see, hey, here's my standard task runner, so it will actually trigger an alert within here if it's the web server, if it's the scheduler, if anything goes down and causes the task to fail, you'll be alerted that within your task logs, whereas before it just would have been kind of a silent failing error because the environment would have gone down, it wouldn't have saved it. So cool stuff, a lot of quality of life improvements here. That is my true last one, and just really hope that you found this useful. I hope that you like some of these updates as much as I do. Again, like I said, this is kind of just more of a quality of life update, but excited for Airflow 2.9 to really come in and build on top of the solid foundation that 2.8 has laid. So that's all I have for today. Have a good one. Data Guy out.